What's up, everybody? This is Domingo Hero, Necro of the Iceberg, and today's video I'm going to be doing, guys, going to be doing another gaming news. And in this gaming news, guys, I am going to talk about, a couple things. The first thing I will be talking about is, Xbox, they're on the news right now because about their servers being shut down, and I'm going to get to that. But before we get to that one, there's another thing I also want to talk about first, and that is Sega, saying that they will not ditch physical media, but they will continue on making physical games. So we're gonna get this started. So let's start off with that first. So I got an article right here. This is from GameSpot.com, and it reads: Sega won't ditch physical media, but say digital expansion is viral. Sega president Shuji Yusumi said the company still values the culture of physical media despite the push to all digital future. No one really loves Sony's decision to kill physical PlayStation disc in January 2028, but there is a data that backs up the company's plan. Sega's president understands the choice and the numbers, but he said the company remains committed to producing physical media despite the push to an all-digital future. In a recent interview with Famitsu that was translated by the Eurogamer, Sega president Sujin Yusumi spoke about how the company needs to be more digitally unconscious and become more global. For Sega's digital resilience is an important part of the company's business going forward. When it comes to titles we call full games for consoles and PC, we believe that the digital SIP is critical. Yusumi told Famitsu, of course, consoles are important, but the proportion of people who plays on PC is still increasing, even in areas where consoles are not widely available. There are many people who say, I can play it on PC in order to celebrate that market. We believe it's important to strengthen our digitalization. And admitting that an all-digital future is seemingly inevitable, Yusumi acknowledged that physical media is still a vital aspect of the games industry and something he hopes Sega can balance. We were originally a platform provider, and of course, we still value the culture of physical media. Yusumi continue rather than company completely abandon that. We are currently challenging ourselves to shift so we could think about and act on the important aspect of digital media in parallel. This is somewhat stark contracts to what Ubisoft CEO Wyvings Gallimont recently said about Sony's decision in a recent VGC interview. Gallimont remarks that the end of PlayStation disc production won't disturb the industry too much. The industry this decision will impact, though, is brick and mortar stores, although GameStop's Ryan Cohen isn't concerned with the impact of Sony's unsettling physical PlayStation disc. And analysts believe that retailer stores are doomed. The decision has railed up to hundreds of thousands of people to sign a petition, argues Sony's to reverse source. All right, so that's a pretty interesting statement there from the Sega president. I will say, it's almost like he's trying to say, like, we will continue making games like digital, but at the same time, I think we will continue on making physical games as well. So basically, it's kind of like supporting both physical and digital. And instead of abandoning one or the other over the other, why not support both, basically? So that's what's going on. That's the thing I love about Sega, though, because I know a lot of people love Sega. I love Sega, too. I think this is a pretty good decision for them, and a very good statement there by the Sega president. I do love that. I think this is pretty good that Sega decided that they will not abandon physical games, but it's pretty cool that they actually want to support both physical and digital media, so that way, that way there are some games that people want to get digitally, and then there are some people want to get games physically, it's pretty interesting as well. And of course, them saying, the impact of, wow, Sony's PlayStation ending physical games in January 2028, which is in 2 years. It's and they say that it probably is not going to impact the game that much, and maybe it could, maybe it won't. I guess we'll find out soon when we get to January 2028. But I will say, like, this is a pretty good statement by the Sega president. I do like that. The fact that they want to continue making physical games is pretty amazing, though. I mean, look what's going on. Sony's going to end their physical games in January 2020. Microsoft, I mean, we hear rumors whether or not if they're going to continue supporting physical games or not. Who knows? Because there's rumors about, a disk drive that might be in the next Xbox console, the codename Project Hylex, which, we'll find out more information about that soon, because these are just rumors at this time. So who knows what Microsoft is going to say for the Xbox brand. And then we got Nintendo, which Nintendo is still, continue making physical games as well, because, they already made physical games for the Nintendo Switch 2 so far. So if they ever make another Switch game, if they ever make a new console in the future, they might continue on with physical games. So, yeah, so hopefully maybe Microsoft and Xbox might continue physical media, but I do love the statement there for that Sega is making, and that's pretty cool. I know a lot of people say maybe Sega could come back and make some new consoles. Who knows? I mean, it's pretty obviously. I don't know if they will. I mean, I would love to see Sega come back to the video game marketing and make consoles again. Because if you remember in the past, and I know a lot of people know the history about Sega's consoles. Now, Sega's consoles that they have that are good to great consoles, like the Sega 32X and, Sega Saturn and, the Sega Genesis, the Sega Dreamcast, the problem with those four consoles that I mentioned, those are good to great consoles, and they have so many great games. I do love those consoles. I would love to get them one of these days in the future. But the problem with those consoles, as to why Sega made a decision in 2001 to end their history of no longer making consoles anymore, is because those consoles did not sell well in the marketing, because they were getting destroyed by PlayStation mostly, even Nintendo as well, because their consoles, they didn't sell that well, to the point that, it sold so poorly back in the late 90s and early 2000s, to especially like the Sega Dreamcast, which was Sega's last gaming console that they made. And then, they had so many plans, because the Sega Genesis, I mean, not Sega Genesis, the Sega Dreamcast, I'm sorry, the Dreamcast came out around 2000, and they ended the production and they discontinued it a year later in 2001, and they have plans to release so many games in North America that came out. There were some games that did came out in Japan, and they were supposed to come out in North America. There's most of the games, and it didn't happen because due to the poor sales of the Sega Dreamcast, and then Sega's consoles didn't sell that well, because especially the Dreamcast, when it got destroyed by Sony's PlayStation 2 in sales. And it's not just the PlayStation 2, even the Xbox, the original Xbox console, and even the GameCube, those consoles that I mentioned, they actually outsold the Sega Dreamcast. And I'm gonna look this up right now real quick, to look up the sales of the consoles that happened during the sixth generation, which is actually now generation 6 of video game consoles, is one of my favorite generations eras, because of those consoles that I just mentioned. So I'm gonna tell you guys the sales of those consoles in generation 6. So let me just do that right now, and here we go. So if you want to know the sales of the consoles from generation 6, I'm gonna put it up right now, and then after that I'll probably show all the Sega consoles. So here we go. So the 6th generation console sold a record-breaking, 232 million home units altogether, if you combine all the 4 consoles together, which is a record breaking. So if you combine the sales of the PlayStation 2, original Xbox, the Nintendo GameCube, and Sega Dreamcast, the total number of units sold for all four of those consoles together is a combined 232 million. Now we're gonna do this separately. The PlayStation 2 in first place sold over 160 million units sold, and it was the best selling console in history. It was a tremendous success. That's in first place. Second place is the original Xbox, which is also Microsoft's debut in the video game marketing. So this was Microsoft's first Xbox home console, their very first home console. It came in second place with 24 million units sold. Then we have the Nintendo GameCube coming in third place with 21.74 million units sold in third place. And then last in fourth place is the Sega Dreamcast with roughly 9.13 million units sold, and it was discontinued in early 2001. So because of the poor sales and it got destroyed by the PlayStation 2 during those sales, the Sega Dreamcast was discontinued, and Sega has canceled all the games that was supposed to come out for the Dreamcast. It was canceled in North America. And Sony, at the time when Sony used to be good back then in the 2000s, destroyed Sega, and it's just crazy. Now, another thing I want to say before we move on is that I want to look at all the Sega consoles, that was sold. So I'm going to look at all the Sega consoles on, sales. So let's take a look. All right, if I could take a look. Okay, here we go. So Sega's first console, we got the Sega Genesis, also known aka the Sega Mega Drive, came out in 1988. So it was sold around between 30.75 to 39 million units sold globally, plus millions more via third-party variants like Tech Toys. So that's pretty good. Then we got the Sega Master System, came out in 1985. It sold around like 13 million units, sold globally, performingly, exported well in Brazil and Europe. Okay, so not only, and also I forgot to mention that there were some Sega consoles that came out in the 80s as well. So I forgot to mention that earlier. All right, next we got the Sega Game Gear. Came out in 1990. It sold about 14 million units sold. Then we got the Sega Saturn. It came out in 1994. It sold between 9.26 to 9.5 million units sold worldwide. Then we got the Sega Dreamcast that I mentioned. It came out in 1998, and it only sold between 9.14 to 10.6 million units. So before the Sega exiting the hardware market and decided to be a software publisher developer games. And of course they also have, so that's it. And the last thing, they also sell like the Sega Pico, came out in 1993, only sold about 3.8 million units. So yeah. So I think the only consoles that I think it sell well was the Sega Genesis / Sega Mega Drive. That's the only one that I think did pretty well in sales, with like somewhere, with the 39 million unit worldwide. But yeah, so that was the problem with Sega's consoles, is that other than the Sega Genesis that was sold, I thought the Sega Genesis sold pretty well, but the other consoles that I just mentioned, yeah, it didn't do well on sale. Great consoles though, and they have great games on them, but you could see why those consoles did not sell well, and that's why Sega, decided to end it in 2001 and then exit the hardware marketing, So I don't know I do appreciate Sega, and I know a lot of people love Sega to this day, myself included, because I am a fan of Sega. I do appreciate them for what they did over the years, with their consoles and also games that they made with Sonic and all that stuff, Jet Set Radio and etc. But I will say, for them to continue on physical games and they want to continue making physical media, that's actually a very good thing. All right, guys, so here is the last thing I'm going to talk about, and we're going to talk about Microsoft. So Microsoft, as you all know, from last week, I did mention in my other gaming news a week ago that Sony's PlayStation servers were shut down worldwide. Well, apparently Sony was not the only one that had their servers being shut down. It actually happened again, but this time with Microsoft's Xbox. And I'm going to read this to you guys right now. So here's the article from Eurogamer. It says, Xbox service is down with outtake, meaning players can play any digital or physical games after a similar PlayStation Network issue last week. So this happened a week ago. And then Xbox, so it says here in the article that hold on one second. Yeah, it says that Xbox Online service, currently down, and a curious timing as the rival PlayStation Network has similar issues only last week. Xbox Live service page currently shows the account and profile, stores and subscription, games and gaming and apps and mobile services are all down with a major outtake and other parts of online. Infrastructure such as multiplayer, cloud-based games, as well as some functionality and like sharing screenshots and captures are seemingly untouched by the outtake. In practical terms, this means users may, per the warning, struggle to do the following: signing video games in the store, play download games, disk-based games, backwards compatibility games, and the launch of Xbox mobile apps. Okay, so as noted by the VGC, the official Xbox supports account on X has confirmed that some users are encountering errors when attempting to sign in. See in your game library or launch games engineer quickly. We're signing on the case, but the currently unknown if this will be quick and easy fix or something that will last longer. The Eurogamer has tested this outtake on your own consoles, but not found an issue with starting games themselves. The warning is also presented at the console's homepage, however, and if you're the one of those affected by the above, the extent of the issues, according across both physical and game disc-based games, will render the consoles largely unsuitable for its core purpose. And of course, I see a picture right here on the Xbox status. It did show, like the account profiles, those and subscription games and apps and mobiles were not working well. The only ones that were working fine was the online safety, family, friends, and social activities and share broadcasting. So yeah, and there's also, that was stuff that was going on. It was crazy, and of course the online problem besides both PlayStation and Xbox are happening just as the gaming communities reckon with the ideas of all digital futures on consoles, and a knockoff on the effect of owning games via DRM. In the case of Microsoft, they are also a risen following sweeping layoffs across its gaming decision. Needless to say, this ill-timed situation isn't what the power would have needed to try to relaunch the damaged game brand. Right now, it's been over 3 hours since the Xbox response, and while reports of the same words of the Xbox struggle, long before that, around 5 a.m. BST, their Xbox fans has been limiting both the speed of Xbox response and the fact that they own and physical media can be impacted by the service outtake. Pay X amount and for games for not being able to play since it's them in the blast and all that stuff. So, yep, and they fought the echo throughout the threads. And I'll just say, they can't launch anything. They could welcome to the digital era with the user with the name. Meanwhile, putting insisting none of my digital games work. There's no physical future. Looking pretty dark. Your gamer content Xbox for comfort anyone detail on the outtakes. So yeah. That was crazy. And here's the first, it was Sony with PlayStation, and now with Microsoft with Xbox. But they were not the only ones. There's also two other companies that are not gaming, but I do have to bring them up. Even their service went out. One of them was Google. That happened after the service of Xbox shut down. And also Metroid by T-Mobile, a phone company. Their servers were also shut down as well. Yes, they're not video game companies, but I do have to bring them up because, it happened to those companies as well. First, it was from Sony to Microsoft to Google to Metro by T-Mobile. What is going on with these companies having their servers being shut down and having an outtake? Like, it's crazy. The past 2 to 3 weeks now, it's crazy. And speaking about Microsoft, it was so bad to the point that they have to apologize to their fans. And I'm gonna read this this little tweet a post from on X. So I got this article right here, and I'm going to read it. This is from a user from X, Scott Van Vellet. He said that this is from last week, by the way. He said earlier today, many people began experiencing issues with sign-in. In maturely rating their games library and playing games, the team has worked hard throughout the days to fix the issues and restore service as of 2:30 p.m. PTT. Nonetheless, this is an unacceptable situation, and we must do better to support you. Over the upcoming weeks, you will hear more from me about the service. Other our platforms and the work we're doing to make Xbox better, and to start with some transferring about this incident. What happened late last night, a licensing service that sits outside of Xbox, but which Xbox, depending on, began following this caused some sign-in scenarios to fail, and it caused many scenarios that required an unlimited check and also fail, such as listing out a full library and launching games that you own. And also affected several to our publishers and store partners who, depending on the game system, which is why some of you saw issues in specific games that and not others. What we did in our all-call teams to cut off the first signal overnight throughout automatic monitoring and declaring a major incident. Once we isolate the failing of instructing, we shifted traffic into the healthy parts of the system. While the team continued to work towards the root cause, service come back unheavily across regions, which is why some of you recover hours before others. What's next? We were running all four incidents review. I care less about the one line root cause and more about the real question: why is a failure in one service was able to take down this much while recovery took so long as it did, and what we changed so a single point of failure can ruin your night again. That means hardening and the penalties under dev signing and game launch, improving how we detect and detain this class of failure, and being faster and clearer with you when something breaks. Thank you for your patience, and we will report and generally help us our scenario this down. We'll do better. And also Xbox support on X. Later that same day that happened, they also respond by saying, "Good news, the early Xbox issues should now be in Mingalian, and you should once again be able to launch games, sign in, and complete purchase. Thanks for sticking with us through a long time. Let us know if anything looks still off." So there you go. So Xbox's service was shut down for Xbox 360, Xbox One, and the Xbox Series consoles. But luckily, Xbox got this shit together and able to fix that problem, just like Sony did of 3 weeks ago. So yeah, it was crazy. But I will give Microsoft one thing credit for. Two things. Number one, they did fix the issue of the service, and number two, they did apologize to their fans. So you could tell that they do care about the fans because they do apologize. Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really a Microsoft fan, but I always appreciate their Xbox consoles. I'm not really the biggest Microsoft fan, to be honest. If I had to tell you guys honestly, but I will give them credit. They did apologize, and they did fix the server issue. So right now, all the Xbox servers, from the 360, Xbox One, and the Xbox Series X/S console, they're all working fine. So they got that together. So hopefully in the future, like these things will never happen again. So yeah, like it is crazy, it's just crazy that PlayStation had the issue, and then Xbox had that issue. And then the other two companies that are not gaming, like Google and even Metro buying T-Mobile, have that same issues with their servers. But they got their stuff together and stuff. So yeah, but I will give Microsoft credit. They did apologize, and they actually, because they knew that they knew they messed up, and they actually fixed the problem. So there you go, because they at least Microsoft have the balls to apologize to their fans, unlike Sony, who never did. So yeah, that's going to be it for this gaming news, guys. So don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, post your comments in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about this gaming. What do you think about the Xbox service being shut down? And also, what do you think about Sega's, talking about, continue making their physical media games? Let me know in the comment section below. That's going to be it for this video. So this is Domingo here on Network with the Iceberg. All I can say is take care. Have a good day. Goodbye, everyone. Domingo here on Network with the Iceberg is signing out. Peace.